Hello and welcome everyone to Birthing New Earth, where courageous individuals are stepping up to ask the hard questions, look at the tough decisions, and make the responsible choices necessary to leave a sustainable living legacy of thriving life on this planet for the next 7 generations and beyond. I'm your host, Kathy Forrest, founder of Celestial Forest Institute, and it is my pleasure to be here today with Dr. Rainbow Mooon. Welcome, Rainbow. So happy to have you on the show.
I am so honored to be here, and you know, who knew that in such a short time, but I feel like we've known each other for previous times, and this was just a coming together. That's why it came together so smoothly. So thank you for including me in this wonderful summit. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Rainbow is a PhD. She's a life coach and a wisdom keeper. She's been a metaphysician all her life, and through her wealth of wisdom and unique understanding of the human condition, she helps seekers get back into alignment with their true selves and find balance in their lives amidst the chaos of change. Her childhood as an empath has informed her whole life, and she holds a PhD in philosophy, and her varied experiences include being a publicist in Hollywood, a brief modeling career, and the president of the School of Metaphysics in Kansas City, Missouri, just to name a few. But in her own words, she says, "You can call me an emotional healer, an earth mama, a beauty expert, a fashion maven, an astrologer, an urban neo-shaman, an anthropologist, a life coach, an integral philosophy, wisdom keeper, a crazy old cat lady, or just a curiosity." They're all just titles and labels. What I do is distill esoteric knowledge from the past, providing appropriate context for everyday practical application, while bridging the gap between scientific psychological perspective and ancient spiritual practices for radical self-transformation. My job is to see the truth residing in each individual or the collective group and help those involved reach their goals by tuning into the wider perspective. I'm good at helping folks see how amazing they really are underneath the concepts and beliefs they were given to distract them and test them in life. I help folks evolve deliberately by teaching them how to learn from their own lives, find their own flaws, and fix their own remedies. I give folks the power to put things back in order for themselves. I teach the value of self-improvement and inner recycling. Oh, that just sounds delicious in and of itself.
Yeah, it's enticing, but I want you to know that everyone doesn't find it as delicious. Some of it bites, right? But that only depends on if a person actually believes you have to suffer greatly to transform.
Absolutely.
The young people today, they just jump right in. And I am so in awe of what we have following. And these are our grandchildren.
Right? These
are our grandchildren coming in awake. Okay? I'm just.
Yeah, me too. The summit has really taught me that, because a lot of the women that I interview are, the next generation coming up, and I've been able to relax finally.
Yes.
So they're going to get it.
Yes.
The planet's going to be fine.
Yeah, well, the planet was always going to be fine. Well, the humans are going to still be here and be okay?
Right.
Question. Yeah.
Right.
That's the question.
Our topic today is Gifts of Adversity, the Beauty of Chaos. And I lifted some things from your website that I want you to speak into.
Okay.
That I thought would apply to this and birthing new earth.
Yes.
So one of the things you say there is a new historically significant level of consciousness and culture is emerging during this time, obviously. Can you speak into the dramatic changes we're seeing and what is meant for society at large? What is happening and what is it trying to communicate to us?
I think it's probably easier to start with the astrological aspect of it, because I can still remember as a hippie, a flower child of the 70s, and we were singing This Is the Dawning of Aquarius back then.
Mm-hmm.
And we, of that generation, honestly believed that we were initiating the kind of change that it looks like is happening now.
Right.
And astrologically, we kept looking at Pluto and Saturn and Jupiter in Capricorn, knowing that that meant all foundations, all government, all structures, education, religion, everything was going to be changing now.
Mm-hmm.
But we felt this impetus because of where Jupiter was back then.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, we are at that place where we've helped push things to where they are. We're the human beings, whether we like it or not, we're all responsible for, I have to watch my language, the leader of our country. Is it okay to call him a tangerine toddler? Because that's what I call him, and I mean it from an Earth Mama place. The child is a child, and we put a child in charge of adult business, and that says a lot about us as a nation. And so when we look at that, we have to understand that even unconsciously, we were helping undo structures.
Absolutely.
Everything this man man-child has started with, from the time he came in, we can see, well, that's going to have to change. My favorite, even above the stuff that's happened recently, is when all the women around the world said, nah. That was the first time all the women from around the world came together and went, and see, if we look back in ancient times, if you wanted to be the chief, you needed to impress the grandmothers. You needed to impress the senior women of the tribe, the village, the town, the whatever. You did not get past it because they've been watching you while you were growing up. So at this point, that to me was like such a sign of, we are back now. We're situated in this child has brought us all together. Because technically, this is a feminine planet. I mean, I think you don't have to be a doctorate to know it started off as a she, and though she diversified and lost some of the leg of that second X in an XX to create a Y, it's still a feminine planet. And we gave all of you young children, boys, opportunities to run things. And you did not do well. I remember in 1985, when the mother first said to me, it's time to let the children know to quit digging in Arkansas for crystals. You've got what you needed, quit it. I mean, I was one of the ones going down there in the hot and walking through the cut and digging up and bringing them home and sharing and selling. But when she said that, I started to, mother said, quit. It feels like rape. Mother said, and I quit. I watched other people go, and now the kind of health situations, what we are seeing happen, even in South Africa, with anything that needs to be mined, the coal, all of this, in the 80s, mid-80s, she said, okay, I'm over it, quit.
Wow.
Now, if you were the mother and now grandmother, and you said to the children, you're making too much noise, I need you to quit. I need you to quit. I need you to quit.
Right.
When the grandmother stands up to shout, everybody knows they're in trouble. And that's all that's happening right now.
Right. Exactly. Wow.
The mother sent the virus. Now, I know that people don't like the idea that she would do that, but I like to remind people, Mother Mary, Jesus's mother, is a late mommy in this whole scheme of things, okay? I mean, she's only 2,000 maybe 2,500 years. We have mommies that precede her.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't always show up as calm. I mean, I love Pele.
Mm-hmm.
And the Hawaiians know this is not a warm and fuzzy mommy.
Right.
We have the largest volcanic crater on the planet in Yosemite.
Right.
That's always said to me, all she has to do is burn.
Right. So I've been telling women exactly what you've said. When I think of Saturn, I don't think of the hardcore masculine. I think of the grandmothers. And I've told everyone, the grandmothers have been on vacation. They came back home and, oh, y'all got a mess to clean up, right? So.
See, and that's just it. You make the grandmothers angry.
Mm-hmm.
And everything's in trouble. Everybody needs to pull their shit together. I'm sorry. But they need to recognize the grandmother is just about ready to growl.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't do well when grandmother growls.
Well, and quite frankly, this little tiny kind of pandemic, and I don't mean any disrespect for all the people that have been ill or have lost their lives, but it could have been so much worse. Could have been so much more difficult. It's like a tiny little nudge, just like, okay, y'all, pay attention.
Kathy, when we look around the planet, because we have the media now, and we don't need no freaking newspapers. We got Facebook.
Right?
Okay, so when you look at countries like India, China, let's pick any other huge other countries that are even poor, and how they responded to that. There may be a pandemic, so we need to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you find it curious that there was only one nation that said, and we don't want to. We don't even think it's real. We don't want to play that. We don't care. So the mother already knew that, because mothers know her children.
Mm-hmm.
So it almost feels like, and I know that there are people from all around the world listening to us, okay? Mm-hmm. So what it sounds like is that the mother gently had everybody else taken care of, because their nations, that each culture has their way of mothering, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And looky here.
Mm-hmm.
And even while this is the nation that I don't wanna, and had 4 to 5 times the number of deaths if you add everybody else up together, and they're still going, I don't wanna.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Not only are they doing I don't wanna, from that I don't wanna, we begin to see the levels and depths of, and hate isn't a real word, but fear manifesting as hate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, well, it's a real word, but it's not an emotion. It's so mental that if you try to sit and understand what is hate, it's anger and fear sort of coming together, and they make this what looks, when I look at it from my vision, it looks like a tumor.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's hard for me to see that as an emotion. It's an expression, but that's still anger mixed with fear. And when we look at the history, this is a nation that is founded on fear that covers itself up by manifesting as anger, and then waving flags as if their anger is really hate, while the hate is actually destroying them. So what needs to happen is for us to own how traumatized the land is that we walk upon, which is, and I think I mentioned it in the bio that you got to read. In 2016, I was so deeply impressed to create a forgiveness process. And it started off with that we were going to all come together to forgive 10 major areas of karma. And it included what has happened to the Native Americans, the enslavement of African people, what happened bringing the Irish people over and how they treated the women and all of the Jewish people. So it was 10 different, and it covered everything. Iraq, Iran, it covered the LGBT, because this land is built on, let's pretend those are not human beings.
Right?
We found it. It's ours. And that bully mentality, we still have that.
Right.
And we're pretending that we are an advanced civilization. And I think the last month has shown we're not civil yet, kids.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're still learning on. We're working with that, Win. We're still not a democracy yet, kids. I know we keep talking that word. We don't know what love is here yet. And yet we keep talking those words. And we keep praying, as we call it, for peace. If you don't have peace in your own heart, what are you praying about? How do you even know how are you using the word? How do you conceive of it if you don't have that as a personal experience? Because if I'm reading the history of the nation I was born into correctly, the Ku Klux Klan was designed to bring peace. Well, they were getting rid of all those pesky people.
Wow.
The Ku Klux Klan always prayed when they started their whole meetings. The Ku Klux Klan invited everybody to come and see what vermin they had finally captured and killed. They were about peace. They were about making America great again.
Oh, wow. Wow. So I think this is a really good place for me to ask my next question, because I have another little quote from your website. To be sustainable, the transformation we seek must come about as a result of evolution, not revolution.
Right.
The cultural evolution that we need must come to us in the form of a new worldview forged through the interpenetration of our increased problems and our newly perceived opportunities.
Yep.
Please tell us what that means and how we can do that.
One of the teacher philosophers that I have been attracted to in the last year is Thomas Hubble, H-U-B-L. And he also has spent many decades studying and understanding our collective trauma, how that filters down and gets involved in our communal, cultural, societal trauma, and then that holds up the personal violence and domestic violence and the ACEs. At this point, when I first got into ACEs, even though the history begins in the mid-'80s, I didn't discover it till after I graduated. And they're looking back on taking stats on the numbers of young people who actually have had adverse childhood experiences. It was always assumed at-risk communities.
Right.
But the research now shows middle-income families, upper-income families, and our current president proves anybody.
Yeah.
So if we begin to look at that, everybody is in a state of trauma. What we have to begin understanding is, and I don't remember, what's his name? Einstein's quote exactly about, you can't go ask the person who created the problem how to solve the problem.
Right.
So that's why we're looking at the young people, because what really has to happen is a complete shift in our perspective. And I'm going to use this virus as an example. You lock up Americans or tell them they need to be locked up for 3 months. Leave them with just a family their own family.
Right.
and they can have Zoom with their family, but they get to understand a lot of themselves and a lot of their own internalized pain and suffering. And then, because you're locked up and you're really trying to obey because you understand what's at risk, your perspective changes.
Mm-hmm.
I do not believe that the revolutions that we've been watching behind George's murder would have been as strong and as powerful if the whole world had not been locked up for as long as it had just prior.
Right. Wow.
Suddenly, we've been forced to look into our own humanity and like ourselves or not, to appreciate the relationships that we've created, the world that we now live. I mean, because it's a small world for us to move out to now the local restaurant and the local grocery store and the local pet. So suddenly the village thing is taking on a different little meaning for us.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, when we look, and that includes, because the mother said when she put that boy in office, I did that for a reason, you know. It's like, Mother, please tell me, because people are going to ask me and I don't understand.
Right.
I was going to a meeting, a conference on the waters in South Dakota, and he became president, and I'm sitting in front of the going, Mother, I can't even go downtown to this meeting without, you have to tell me. Mm-hmm. And it was so profound to hear the mother say in my head out loud, there was no one better to trigger every single human in the planet. Mm-hmm. This man did not just trigger us.
Right.
There's other nations that are involved here.
All of them.
No one better. There was no one more qualified to trigger everybody for whatever their own reasons are around the globe, but especially in this country. Mm-hmm. There was no one better to bring the women together. My grandmother would have rolled over among this boy. His mouth, he was just
right?
He's amazing. So mm-hmm. What's amazing is that we put him in there because we needed to be able to look at ourselves in order to shift our perspective about our own reality and therefore be able to consider shifting realities outside of ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that's how it happens. It begins with me getting beyond thinking I need to lose some weight. Me suddenly having, let's say, a cancer scare. Mm-hmm. There's a lump that shifts your whole perspective.
Right.
What I end up working with are people who are choosing to shift their own perspective. Mm-hmm. We do it better when we choose as opposed to be suddenly thrust into a situation where we now have to make a decision. We are not only looking at how Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter are in Capricorn forcing change. Mm-hmm. We're also looking at how we're in aspects with Venus right now where we must look at our own values. Yeah. America is such a spoiled little brat. Mm-hmm. It thinks that it can play with values like what, they're dominoes or checkers, and so we're learning not only about humans, but we have, this toddler has now impacted Yosemite, Yellowstone, all of that's where he finally got my attention. He started, what are you doing? You're doing what? Mm-hmm. You don't mess with what's the mother's. We donated that so that we could make sure the mother stayed in love with us. Mm-hmm. And he's ripping that up. So it's those things that we have to look at all of our values. And since there are folks who only do the conservation area, there are those who are in the economic, but as long as each group is coming together, when we all come together, we can agree on particular values. This is where America is at risk. Mm-hmm. It's value system.
Right.
And see, the other place that I make people really, really angry at, and this is something that I'm going to, because at this age, I don't care. I waited too long to be this old to have to now wonder, well, what will people think? I don't care, because here's the fact. There is only one race. Even when I was in high school and they would say, what race? And then we put African American, Native American, Hispanic. There's only one, human. And I would write it in. But no, you don't understand. We have to make sure everybody, no, if you treat us all like human, you wouldn't have to worry about redlining and make sure the insurance, no. We're one race. And I understand that right now we need to get Black Lives Matter. But while we're doing the Black Lives Matter, and I'm open to pissing everybody else, I don't care. We need to look at Red Lives Matter.
Thank you.
We need to look at Yellow Lives Matter. Now, they may not be having the loud cops shooting them down, but we're starving these people. We're doing all sorts of things in all sorts of ways, and it seems to me that to just pick out groups is distracting. All lives matter. We all understand and agree with that. So while we go through this, we need to vent some anger. Okay, and I get that. So Wendy's burns and Target burns and all these, okay, that makes up for how many lynchings? Okay, and we're not supposed to do those comparisons, but I'm doing it because I've been here long enough and I have the right to do that. So you guys didn't want to pay back in some other ways. This is your payback. Back off. Let them get their anger out. And while they're being angry and venting and burning down stuff, you guys figure out how you can change whatever systems that are still allowing not just systematic racism for Black people. What are you doing about the Native Americans that you have lied to and lied to and lied to and made papers and not kept any of those words? So again, we keep backing into America. What are your values? How do we move forward if we're not all working from common values? I mean, it used to be said that this was the land of the, and then ... I think we have shown that's not true.
Right.
So help me.
Okay.
And personally, I'm still waiting for my 40 acres and my mule. My grandmother used to say that, and I adopted it, and I said to her, I will carry that, because I told her, I said, I will be in the generation where they will get that taken care of. And I am now at this age, and wait.
No 40 acres yet?
And you know what? I'll tell you something, Kathy, I'll take half.
Right?
I'll take 20 acres, and I'll skip the mule. I have a car.
Right.
Just bring me, and do not play that Native American treaty crap.
Right.
Okay, because I will come burn down your building. Now, everyone keeps talking about nonviolence, but it's funny to me how nothing happens until we have violence.
Right.
And I am such a nonviolent person, but I said, knowing that you were going to talk to me, I really sat down and thought about that. And you know what, Kathy? The reason that I have been able to be nonviolent is because even if I get this close to angry, everybody gets it and they shift. I have never had to go ahead and just blow. I've had people run up to my face with guns. I've had a gang of guys think they were going to gang rape me. I've had all these kinds of things happen. And as soon as I say, let me go, and that tone.
Yeah.
So I've never had to be violent, which is my point. Piss off a grandmother, and you get to meet Kali. Right. There are Greek goddesses that you do not want to mess with. There are German goddesses you do not want to mess with. So for us to keep thinking women are just, will take your crap is erroneous. And I'm still praying that the woman that is married to this toddler is going to finally wake up one morning and go, I've had enough. She's going to wake up one morning and have had enough. And if she hurts him, we will all stand up and defend her. Right? I know I will. And I'm good at drawing a crowd.
I bet you are. So I have another question for you. You say that I'm on a mission to do my part in the evolution of humanity by helping folks know They are more than a drop in the ocean, because everything you're talking about, I'm sure everyone is embracing, but they probably feel overwhelmed. What can one person do? And you say, I want to teach those who are aware of their personal web of chaos how to shift their perspective to see beyond the isolated fractals they think of as their life. Oh, please speak into that.
Okay.
How can the individual person shift this?
Stop, and I'm going to use you. Stop for a moment, and as I'm running my mouth, allow some of the most horrific experiences you've ever had in this lifetime. Just let them run through your mind and body. Just sort of review them and feel the gratitude that you're here, that you survived. But even as you allow them now to move through you, and you allow the gratitude to expand as you look at the end of how it ended, now just for a split second, if you squint your eyes just right, you can see there's a gift, there's a pearl.
Oh, yeah.
In every single horrific experience you've ever had.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, what if when you were 10, 11, 12, grandma, mom, somebody said, honey, do not fear bad experiences, sad experiences, challenging experiences, experiences where you thought you did not do good. Don't trip, because behind every single one of them, I guarantee you there is a gift. So as soon as you get through that and you quit crying, you come over here to grandma and she will help you see the gift. Seeing the gift is the shift.
Wow.
But how many people are taught that?
Right.
How many crappy things did we have to go through before spirit finally got loud enough in our head because we were crying and we couldn't breathe, and now we could hear the voice go, it's going to be all right. We do not go through our traumas with that in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are those who are very resilient that do, and we see them as they forge ahead through huge adversities. But all of us, being born was traumatic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So then there are the folks who had unloving parents, parents who were physically abusive, parents who literally raped their body, minds, and spirits. For them, they began to believe that they were worthless. So they don't see that any longer they don't see that as a traumatic experience. It was their life. And so that's what I do then, is help them see, let's look at experiences, because we can take an experience and find the pearl. We can find the gift. And then once you can find 4 or 5, Kathy, then you can help them see that horrific life has been a gift, not just for them, not just their own gift, but somehow if they have survived, they're a gift for us. They are inspirational for us. And when you can see that dawn upon them, well, that's the whole reason that I'm on a mission.
Right.
that dawning of someone recognizing they are more than they had even considered, that they are beautiful, that they are strong, that they are worthy. Oh crap. I mean, and just that whole, it moves into a Taurus where now they are in authenticity, and you see it in the way that they now move. They walk differently when they get that. Their eyes are different when they get that. And if you can have that happen with a child who had been abused, he won't be broken ever again. And so that's really what keeps me going. I have a hard time socially. I have a lot of little things that it's taken me years and years and years to work through. And every time I'd work through something, I could see it in other people. And that was, oh, put this down. So it became skills and tools as I allowed me to evolve. So the biggest, most exciting thing happened this fall when doing some inner work, I found out and then checked into it. So I discovered I'm on the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I am 70 plus years old. Up until 50 years ago, they didn't know girls could be on the spectrum. Only boys were supposed to be autistic. And back in my day, that wasn't even a common word. That word fell under mental sick. Okay. Now, when I was 9, my mother claims that she went to the doctor and he said that I was schizophrenic. I looked the word up and I determined he didn't know what he was talking about. I determined also that my mother was bipolar, so she was really just trying to check in on me.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until I have a great grandson that has been diagnosed that I went, I wonder. And I'd heard that now, especially with Asperger's, women are now recognized as having it. And suddenly, all of the other things that don't fall under ACEs, like my non-ability to be social, but acute ability to do what I do so well and love what I do, but don't like to be in social crowds and noise and dogs. I decided there's nothing wrong with me. I'm autistic. Heck! I'm just like, thank you. That makes, we be geniuses. Autism means that your brain works differently. Therefore, you need to listen to autistic people, even if they have a hard time talking, because they have naturally working a different perspective. We need to let those people, and they're doing it with so much television now. So people are knowing that. But again, that's an example of it. And my thing with fractals is because I need a way to keep taking people back to nature. Everything about these bodies is from nature. The real you is actually the spirit within. And so when you were saying the gift, and I still have to get all that organized for you, but for me, one of my opening sentences is, you understand that you are an infinite being having a human experience, yes? And people will go, yeah. It's like, no, stop for a moment. Because I'll bet you always thought this whole human experience was the real thing. This is the dream and the illusion. And helping people respect how they create their own reality literally affords them a realization and an open-mindedness about how others create. When people say, I can't imagine what it's like to be Black. Yeah, you can. You can imagine it. You can't say you've walked in my shoes, but you can close your eyes just based upon what you've read. And you can imagine it. And if you really get into it the same way we do with movies, it shifts your perspective. Movies shift people's perspective. So to pretend that we can't imagine it, that's just lazy. That's okay. Because like I say to people, you know what? I need you to keep your perspective until you're willing to give it up. Because until then, if you give it up too soon, you're not being authentic.
Right.
And I'd rather have authentic allies than people who just want to be at the party.
Right.
We don't need you at the party. We got enough people at the party.
So what would you say to our audience who have listened to this and are intrigued? If you had parting words for them about what they can do for themselves, what would that be? Like if you want, it's like 2 or 3 things that they could do as we birth new earth to birth themselves in a new way.
Well, the first thing that I would probably want to say to them is blow off everything else around you for a moment and really look at yourself and determine if you genuinely love yourself unconditionally. Most people don't. Not unconditionally. I mean, they'll say, well, if I could lose this, or if I could change this, or if I could fix this, or if I, no, 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 no. Warts, farts, and all. Because if you can accept all of who you are, and if you bother to even know,
Mm-hmm.
there's a whole world of people who have not bothered. So
Right.
we're really talking to the people who are watching this. They have bothered.
Mm-hmm.
But I submit that the next thing, that loving yourself is so important, because the real source of suffering, judgment.
Mm-hmm.
The
Absolutely.
real source of all suffering is judgment. And that's where I like to send people. That would be the third part. So when you're doing your mindfulness and your meditation, sit outside with your butt on the ground or your feet on the ground. Go see the Grounding movie if you haven't seen it already. But sit with your back against a tree and look in at yourself with so much love, and recognizing that you are an infinite being having a human experience, and that your life matters. Therefore, all life matters.
Girl,
If
I
they could
love
give
that.
up their judgment, there's bliss.
Mm-hmm.
There's bliss. I guarantee bliss giving up judgment.
Absolutely. What do people have to do to work with you, Rainbow? If they wanted to find you, go to your website?
That would be the easiest thing, is to go to Rainbow Moon PhD on Facebook.
Okay.
That'll lead you to the website, but it'll also give you access to me.
And tons of videos. I saw those. They're
And
awesome.
those are a couple of years old. I keep wanting to delete them, and then someone will say, no, 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 I really love them. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine. Because you know, one of the things that happens when you really embrace yourself is you stop feeling the need to just be in. Some people have a career that they love, but most people have jobs that they hate.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they forget is life is always on a constant change. That's the nature of life, is change. Humans keep trying to create a tradition where you don't change. It will kill you.
Mm-hmm.
You must allow you. So that's why I finally had to love myself completely with, I have always followed the mother, and every time I have to change careers, I can feel my family behind me going, again? Well, life isn't long enough to stay in one thing, guys, you know? And I've only got 30 more years, which is why at this point it's like, let's get this show going. We need to get America saved, because, and see, don't get me going on, Black folks built this nation, you know? I have not lost sight of that. Now, you might have called them slaves, but apparently you guys couldn't do it. So therefore, and if I start telling people, let's take pride in that we built this nation, what's going to happen then?
Right.
So,
Rainbow, this has been a delight. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom. Thank you for bringing such a fresh perspective to all of it. That perspective is so needed right now. Thank you so much for being with us. This has been amazing.
thank you, thank you, thank you. And tell Laura I said thank you.
I will. I will.